Welcome to Pray for Rain. I am your host, Jack Willis. And if you've had a pulse over the past 30 years, you'll probably have noticed the ever intensifying and tightening cycle of health trends that afflicts our society. It's essentially every 24 months, we get some new radical food, fitness, supplement craze shoved down our throats as being the cure to human health and longevity. It's kale, it's saunas, it's blue zones, green zones, zone 2 cardio. And there's a strong social contagion element to all of this because people will be shocked if you haven't participated in some of this. They'll say, "You're not cold plunging? You're telling me you don't intermittent fast?" And I have to admit that I'll get captured by these things sometimes. I see all of the headlines and the Instagram posts, and I'll worry that I'm not participating in enough. I'm not participating enough in this trend that has these crazy health claims. And the media cycle of health and supplementation has started to influence my subconscious and my dreams even, because I have a note in my phone, a sleep deprived note from waking up in the middle of the night. And it'll say something I don't even really understand, like, you need to enter ketosis. And I don't even know what that means, but obviously it incepted me enough to the point where there's nothing that's safe from the health industrial complex at this point. And it feels like after a few years, these studies inevitably come back with mixed results. It's always like, it's not exactly what we thought. But by that time, whatever AG1 clone is already for sale at Costco. Kirkland Signature cold plunges will be on the racks by the time the mixed data comes back on cold plunges. And we're going to blink and mid-biotic yogurts are going to sweep the nation. Mark my words, we will have mid-biotic nighttime gummies, and they will cost a king's ransom, which happens to be the other aspect of all of this health trend stuff. They are so expensive. And these companies understand consumer willingness to pay for products they believe to have health benefits. And it shows in the price tag. Have you seen how much they charge for AG1? It's like $100 a month for a subscription. What is the proprietary ingredient in that? Fucking saffron. I mean, we're going to look back on so much of this in 20 years and just see it as absolute sawdust. It's colostrum, it's hydrolyzed water, it's red light therapy, a lot of so-called miracles with high price tags and FDA pending results. But I am full of shit because I buy into this stuff sometimes. I've got some pricey lion's mane mushroom powder in my pantry that I'm probably just pissing out the active ingredient of every day. And I used to be a big Huberman Lab guy. I was endlessly trying to maximize neural health and thinking that I could become Superman by implementing protocols. And now I see so much of that stuff as, dare I say, silly. But it's not that I'm against implementing health regimens per se, or trying to take in the latest health science. It can be a great thing. It's just that I wish I had taken more of a balanced approach much of the time, having a bit more of proportion when trying to implement some of these things. There was no need to wake up at 5 a.m. so I could, sauna and cold plunge and take ashwagandha to send a fucking work email, which is the other aspect of this. I think I used a lot of this health optimization stuff as a form of procrastination for actually addressing things that I needed to do in my life. There was some portion of my brain that thought, if I can just get my endocrine system properly aligned and boost my VO2 max, then I'll finally feel like straightening out my finances. Once I get all that tuned, I'll actually want to log into my Schwab account and see where the fuck all my money goes. And you know what? That state of mind never came. There was never a protocol that had that kind of effect. So if you found it, please let me know, because the only regiment I know that guarantees that is desperation and severe procrastination. But there are, of course, things that we can do to improve our health, and we should pay attention to that when we can. And if it makes you feel better, then God bless you. But we are not machines. I am not a machine. I'm not a fucking cyborg that can be perpetually optimized for performance or fine-tuned until I'm wearing blue light blockers while edging to boost my sperm count. I will age. I am aging. I mean, Jesus Christ. Every morning I feel like I have another crow's foot stamped onto my face. My skin is feeling like Japanese paper these days. But the point is that something else is going to come. Another trend, another thing that's going to take the health community by storm. And if I want to try it and I like it, great. But if I miss this one, I'll be okay. I do not need my software updated every single month. I am flawed. I am part of the crooked timber of humanity, and that is okay. I want to try things that make me feel good, but I don't want them to eclipse my identity and make me feel guilty or think that they're going to solve all of my problems. So this is now a reminder to myself to keep it in check. Just keep all of this stuff in proportion. And we're on the cusp of another trend right now. It feels like fiber is about to dethrone high protein as the supplement du jour. And you can feel the groundswell in the podcast universe. Pretty soon, there's going to be someone on Huberman Lab recommending that I rub Metamucil on my nuts for fiber absorption. And a note to Jack, a note to myself. Don't feel like that's going to solve all of your problems. You don't need that one. I think it's Isaac Asimov who said that health is the slowest possible rate at which we can die, which seems a little fatalist, but I like it because it's grounding to me. It releases me from the guilt of being told that it's possible to live forever, because it's not. And I am aging, I am going to die, and I should try to be healthy, but not totally obsess over it. And this obsession of biohacking our way to eternity out of sheer boredom makes me think of a book that I finally got around to finishing. I'd seen so many references to this, and I'd heard a lot of the theories behind the book. But the book is The End of History and The Last Man by Francis Fukuyama. And it is a dense but fascinating book. And for anybody who's not familiar with the thesis of the book, it's essentially that we have reached the end of history. Or rather, we have reached the final stage in human economic political organization, which is liberal democratic capitalism. So we will look back on history and see liberal democratic capitalism as the thing that we were struggling towards for all of human history. And the context with which this book was written was interesting because it was 1992. So the Berlin Wall had fallen and we had defeated the Soviets. Liberal democracy had prevailed. So there's a very strong sense that this was the end of history, in that, hey, this is the methodology that had won out. And at the end of the book, Fukuyama brings in this concept from Nietzsche. It's the idea of the last man. And the last man is meant to represent humanity's fate, what it might be. And the last man is a man who has become totally stagnant. He's replaced the creative urge with a desire for pure comfort and security. And he's weak because he can't endure the slightest psychological or existential discomfort for the sake of a higher purpose. Now, does this feel true today? Does it feel like comfort and lack of larger meaning have made us stagnate? I would say absolutely. It's probably overdetermined because there are many things that cause crises, but we are suffering from a crisis of meaning and motivation for sure. But to understand the last man, Fukuyama also brings in this concept from Plato, which is Thymus. And Plato said that there are three parts to the soul. So reason being the first, which is the part that calculates, does math, seeks safety; desire, the second, and the part that wants to bang and get some Chick-fil-A. And then Thymus, which is spiritedness, or the part of the soul that wants recognition. So he brings in the idea of Thymus as something that the last of us will still need. And Nietzsche and Plato would probably tell us that a healthy society needs Thymus. It needs people who want to be formidable or want that recognition in some capacity. But capitalism is great at satisfying the first two parts, reason and desire. It'll give you calculators and a massage chair from Sharper Image, but it ignores Thymus. It doesn't give us much to fight for or to be glorified by. And that thymotic instinct doesn't just disappear. That need for recognition and glorification doesn't go away. It has to go somewhere. And since we don't really fight wars or have crusades anymore, which is a good thing, Thymus leaks out into the culture. And it's hard not to make the direct connection to the fucking douchebag with a lifted Dodge and a Blue Lives Matter sticker who almost killed your family on the freeway, or the asshole in a balaclava blasting Fetty Wap out of a backpack speaker at the Shell station. It's the type of behavior, this need for recognition, that can be so corrosive when there aren't proper outlets for it. Now, there's probably more going on under the hood of both of those dickhead examples that I just gave, but I think it's an interesting concept to map on. But going back to this idea of strictly the last man, this person who has stagnated because they have become a slug who will struggle for nothing and only wants physical comfort. To the degree that's true, and I think it's true in some sense, I don't think he's right about everything or that manifestation. But to the degree that it's true, much of it is a consequence of our success. There aren't the same material gains to be made from hard work and enterprise as there used to be. The floor of comfort and living standards has been raised so high that the additional gains from making more money have diminished over time. We are well beyond the days where you needed to save money to finally afford a home that has running water, at least in this country. And that is a wonderful thing. It is a wonderful, fantastic thing that we've created a society where almost everyone's physical needs are met to a high degree. And if you happen to be roughly middle class in this country or most developed countries, you essentially have the same quality of life as the ultra wealthy. You can have anything delivered to your house. You have air conditioning, a Ring doorbell, organic blueberries coming out your ass. Airfare has become so cheap where you can travel virtually anywhere you want. You can travel anywhere and it's fairly cheap. St. Bart's might be out of your budget, but other than that, you'll still be able to vacation to South Africa or Thailand or Honduras and be obnoxiously more wealthy than the locals. Although you probably wouldn't want to go to South Africa or Honduras right now, so scratch those. And pretty soon you'll even be able to get your GLP-1s at a discount in this country. We have come so far that you can be among the poorer in America. You can get fat from an abundance of food and then have a generic form of Ozempic delivered straight to your door. And it makes me think of that line from Bane in The Dark Knight that victory has defeated you. All of this is causing us to feel like nothing matters because the traditional ways of making meaning in our lives are collapsing. The larger religious stories, community involvement, America's role in the world are all being degraded. And much of what has replaced these narratives that we've had for so long, much of what has replaced those has been cynical and confusing and, dare I say, stupid. So we have this postmodern erosion of our stories and maximizing of our physical comfort at the same time. We're getting more comfortable. We're having more things delivered, more shows on demand, more brands of protein cookies than we ever would have thought possible. And at the same time, we are more bored than we've ever been. So we have it so easy and have so much spare time that is now just filled by our smartphones and social media. And in the book, Fukuyama suggests that if men can't struggle for a just cause, they struggle against the just cause simply to have something to do. That, or you'll become obsessed with biohacking and tracking your testosterone levels. But that seems to be true. And we see this all the time. It's the woman who double majors in indigenous studies and narrative deconstruction who thinks that if we can only get rid of capitalism and seize the S&P 500 for the people, then we will finally have true equality. We can reach the golden shores of utopia if we tear everything down, and then we'll figure out something new and better. Bored and overeducated people of a certain stripe are often resentful that they aren't playing a revolutionary role in society. And so they want to turn against the cause. They've worked hard for these degrees that they assumed would lead them straight into rescuing disabled Vietnamese child laborers from the evil clutches of the US government. And that fight has not materialized. There is a saying that this makes me think of that I think it's that Republicans want to live in the 60s and Democrats want to work in the 60s. And I think that has some relevance here because so many people want to have the glory and the recognition of fighting in the civil rights movement when that battle doesn't exist anymore, not nearly to the same degree. And these people are left standing on the ramparts, wanting to have that maximal virtuous struggle that doesn't exist to the same degree. It's just obvious that it's bad for human well-being to have no productive outlets for risk-seeking behavior and this type of recognition and having really high living standards. We are evolved apes, and we don't need to run the study to know how productive a troop of chimpanzees would be if they were given an endless supply of Panda Express and Pornhub. It would not go well. It would go terribly. And what I've been asking myself is, would I choose the opposite of this scenario? If given the choice between a destitute socialist hellscape and a decadent, gluttonous market economy, which would I choose? And I'd pick the latter because I want air conditioning and I want the freedom to make choices for my own life. But I'd be lying if I said I didn't understand some of the romantic appeal of being a freedom fighter in communist Cuba or something. Fighting the communists in Cuba, I will add. But as Thomas Sowell says, this is a trade-off we make in our society, a trade-off for the success that we have. It comes with problems. And it is a problem to be solved. And I don't think that tearing down everything is the way to go about it. But one thing that Nietzsche couldn't have predicted is how much stranger things are in reality. there's a Huxleyan bend to all this, a willing retreat into entertainment and technology and the internet that Nietzsche couldn't have imagined. I saw the new Avatar movie in 3D IMAX, and Nietzsche would have shit his britches. It's only going to get more immersive and more simulated and more generated and faster by AI. All of these problems The Last Man have been uploaded to the internet. And in certain aspects, it's gone terribly thus far. And as a species, we already don't tend to cooperate well at a distance with large numbers of people. And mapping that coordination problem onto a digital binary has not made any of this easier. Which I think why modern democracies are such a fucking miracle. The idea that you have a stable democratic nation of almost 350 million people spread across an entire continent would have made Montesquieu implode. These are some of the most unlikely and impressive things to have been created by our species. Incredibly difficult to create, and as we are seeing, very difficult to maintain. I'm actually writing a piece on this at the moment, but the point is, it's like threading the needle at light speed. Very difficult. And now we have plugged we've plugged our society straight into the comment section of 4chan. And in many ways, these tools on the internet are doing the exact opposite of what we want them to do. They make truth-seeking more difficult. They will obliterate our attention or warp our expectations. Not to mention that our species is so freaking mean to one another in a digital landscape, especially in an anonymous format. We have become paranoid and distrusting and shallow, and our monkey minds thirst for content that makes us outraged or horny or disgusted. It is a digital program running on crude meat servers. And The Last Man is sitting on a Temu couch, door dashing shawarma while he watches YouTube videos about how vaccines cause autism. Things have become so good and abundant that we are struggling to handle it. And then we invented Twitter, which tells us that everything is actually terrible and nothing is true. We are desperate to feel anything at all because the threats and incentives that used to guide us don't anymore. And in some ways, that's good. It is good that we have abundance and higher quality of life. But in other ways, it's not a good thing. Okay, that was a bit of a rant, but we have our fucking work cut out for us. And I think that work begins by acknowledging that in this country, we have it pretty good in many respects. Then we need to rip the Ethernet cord out of the brain stem of our society and start developing a new literacy with the internet and social media because it is driving us insane. Then we can start grappling with how to live meaningful lives in a society of abundance. And that's a question that we have to answer ourselves. There isn't and shouldn't be a department of meaning that tells us what to live for. It's a project of our own lives to figure out that individually and as a society. I certainly don't have all the answers. I'm putting out a podcast talking about rubbing Metamucil on my nuts, so this is not exactly a work by Viktor Frankl. But I think the answer is probably not just one thing that gives our lives meaning. It's many things. It's your faith, it's your family, it's work, hobbies, friends, books, travel, the perfect cinema experience at an Alamo draft house. And that makes it harder. It makes it more difficult that there isn't just one answer to these questions. But this will be our cross to bear. And we are lucky to bear it. Things are better than the internet says they are. And we can overcome. Okay, that's it from me. Until next time, I'm praying for rain.